Alright, so here we are with another sculpting video. This time I'm using a reference image. This is a picture I drew probably a few years ago of a creepy floating head monster thing. So you can see I'm starting out just poly modeling, so using 2 cubes with a subdivision surface modifier to get it nice and smooth. UV sphere for the eyes. I switch it out for a subdivided cube again, a round cube right there. It's basically setting up all of the big shapes before I start sculpting. So here I'm in sculpting mode, and I'm just messing around with dynamic topology, trying to get a good amount of detail in there. And I think I start off, you can see, with like 100, and I have to change it, make it a little lower, because I think I started off too high resolution. You're going to want to use the dynamic topology when you use the snake hook tool like this. Otherwise it's going to really stretch those points apart and not look very good. This will actually like add new points for you, new geometry. That's what allows you to get those long stringy bits like this. So you can see I'm trying to get all the big details first before I start going in for things like wrinkles. A lot of trial and error here. And for that tail right there, sometimes I do find it easier to just, undo and try again instead of trying to fix something that's kind of broken. Going back to clay strips right there. I do really like the clay strips brush. It definitely doesn't produce great results, without smoothing it after, but once you smooth it, I feel like it's a good way to add some new shapes in there. I find it pretty intuitive anyway. I'm sure you might feel different about it. A lot of people have their own techniques. So I guess this is probably the only sculpt that I've done and made public that is even close to, like a more realistic human face. Obviously it's still stylized, it is pretty cartoony, but it has like a semi-realistic nose shape, whereas I think a lot of the other ones that I didn't have noses at all. Or just nostrils or something like that. So I'm using the snake hook again for these teeth right here. It actually worked out pretty well. I do really like this style of tooth where it's kind of just part of the skin. It's pretty funny to me. Makes them look like they would be like soft and gummy, even though they're supposed to look kind of like sharp teeth. And here I'm just using that. I think it's the inflate or blob. I don't remember what it's called, but it basically sculpts in a spherical manner, using that to shape the nostrils right there. And then back to the regular draw tool, which I think just has kind of a smooth fall off. I was trying to give it nostrils without them being too apparent from certain angles, because in the drawing you can't really see the holes, and I wanted it to work that way with this one also. Totally could have just left them out because you don't really see them in the end. Then going through here and using the crease brush just to get some more, you know, fine details, wrinkles and such. And then here I think I'm just kind of smoothing things out. Then fitting the eyes back in, making sure they're positioned correctly. It is pretty creepy. Alright, working on this lower jaw now. You can see I'm just kind of masking the head so I can work on just the lower part of the jaw. I think I just masked it and then inverted the mask. Using the snake hook, you could also use the grab brush to reshape that. Once again with the snake hook. Pretty simple shapes here. You could probably poly model all of this in a relatively easy way. Some finishing touches for the sculpting. And then right there, I think I was projecting, doing a UV projection for the eyes. Now I'm just working on the textures. So I'm starting off with a noise texture to make the skin kind of blotchy, using that as a mask for those two colors. Those are the two colors for the skin. And then for the bump, I'm using this Voronoi, trying to get like a pore shape. So that's how I'm getting that particular, you know, starts off smooth at the top and then gets pointy at the bottom. That's what I'm using that RGB curves for. And then I'm just tightening it up with that color ramp and making it much smaller. So it's hard to see, but once you get close, it really does catch the light kind of in the same way like large pores would. And then once again using dirty vertex colors like I have in a lot of my other sculpting videos. You could also use the some ambient occlusion node for this, or pointiness. I think maybe if you invert it. Messing with the subsurface scattering. And now with the eyes, I'm using UV coordinates. I did spend quite a bit of time trying to get this right. There you can see I just hopped into the UV editor to get the center of the eye close to the 0 point on the UV texture. That just helps, you know, with the pupil location. And so for this, I was trying to get a spiral shape, and I could have easily just like drawn this on or made it in a different program, but I was determined to do it in Blender. So I do actually have another tutorial about making spirals with the shader editor. I'll put a link up there in the top right corner. I do spend quite a bit of time trying to get this way I like it. Quite a bit of experimenting. I was messing around with trying to get like a varying thickness with the spiral. I think if I was to do this again, to get a varying thickness, I would mess with the, see that greater than node right there, I would mess with the threshold and try to drive that with a different texture. I do talk quite a bit about controlling a greater than texture, or a greater than node with a texture in my video about that retro sun with all the lines, because that's how I achieved that result. So if you haven't seen that and you're interested, you can go check that one out. See here now I'm just messing with the colors. I like having the eyes be a gradient where it's a different color towards the edges. It adds like a nice bit of contrast, or more like a focus to the pupil. It's kind of interesting. Here I am starting with the lighting, added some volumetrics, make it a little cloudy. I like volumetrics for portraits like this. Instead of adding like a backdrop, you can kind of create a backdrop that's not just completely black with just changing the lights in your scene. And I think it's an interesting way of doing it. Adding that light from below, I think it adds a nice atmosphere, kind of like makes it creepier. You know, people will hold flashlights below their chin to make a creepy face. I think it's an effect similar to that. I do add a lot of rim light for this too. You can see I add a few lights pointing towards the back of the head, and occasionally we'll shut off the lights coming from the front just to isolate the rim light and make sure you can see right there. Make sure the rim lights are all set in a nice way. Makes it more dramatic, I think. And the subsurface scattering is a nice touch for the skin. I think it adds a lot, especially in combination with those rim lights. So right here I do start rendering, and I save a copy, but I go back to make a second version. Thought I could add more, trying maybe a different angle. I kind of wanted a specific angle for this, but also wanted to show off the silhouette at different angles. So I decide to add in just like multiple instances of the head just in the distance. And that allowed me to kind of get, different silhouettes. And also if you instance instead of just duplicating, you can, instead of Shift D, you can hit Alt D, and that will instance, and it saves you a lot of memory in your scene. It's just not as like intensive computationally. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Scattering these things about. And here's the final render. So yeah, what did you think of this one? This is the last sculpting video I have before I have to start making new ones. These were all recorded last October. So if you have any requests for new videos, leave a comment below. Also, if you haven't checked out my new fire shader, you can get that on Gumroad or watch the previous video that shows how to make it. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.